Every now and then, the Wargaming official Discord server will post information about new vehicles, camouflages, and other information you need to know coming into the game. And today's bit of information is a really good bit of information. 2 new Soviet vehicles that are going to be premiums coming into the battlefield. The first one being a Tier 9 auto-loading Soviet heavy tank, the Object 752. This thing is really weird. It has an oscillating turret and a very funky hull design, which we'll be breaking into in just a moment, but yeah, very cool looking tank. The other one is the Object 274A, a Tier 8 Soviet premium medium tank. Both of these tanks look interesting for Soviet designs, nothing like their normal Soviet counterparts, and that's why I am very intrigued to see how these vehicles do play when they are put in testing and finally released into the battlefield. Now, obviously, as these are premiums, I don't know how they're going to be released. It's possible this could be swapping out for the AE Phase 1, but you never know, so we're going to have to find out in the future about all of that. But what I can show you is how these vehicles look, their armor profiles on World of Tanks PC, and as well their statistics. So this is the Object 752. What a weird and funky looking tank. You can see that oscillating turret does move up and down once you move the tank, so kind of weird on that aspect, isn't it? Very, very weird looking. But because of that, it has some very strong frontal armor. That front mantlet of the turret is upwards of 370 millimeters thick. And that means if you're using the 8 degrees of gun depression it has, it's sitting upwards of 384. However, when you do use that gun depression, you can see that it also has cupolas that stick up, which are very weak at only about 190, 180. So just like the Kranvog, you actually want to stick the gun up like this, and then it will be a very, very hard penetration. Tier 8s are not even going to have a chance of cutting through it, and Tier 10s, even with premium, are still going to struggle to get through that, as that is over 380 thick. Pretty impressive when you do think about it. The upper plate on this vehicle is also very strong, being at 282 millimeters basically all around. That means if you're using it again, hull down, that upper plate is 340 thick. Very, very hard to cut through, although it does have a little itty bitty lower plate that's about 200 thick, so there are weak spots on the frontal armor of this tank. Now, side on, it's not super thick. You can see it's only about 140 millimeters, and yeah, even if you're side scraping it, you're really not going to get that many bounces. This is not going to be the strongest vehicle for getting your side scraping out in, and that's also the same for the rear at 131 and 143. Sure, you're not going to penetrate it with high explosive ammunition, but for the most part, it's not the most armored vehicle on the sides of the rear. It reminds me of like an IS-8 hull, but then a weird, super robust, armored, oscillating turret stuck on the roof. The other vehicle we're going to be breaking into is obviously the medium tank, being the Object 274A. Now, this is a vehicle that actually really scares me. It has 6 degrees of gun depression, which isn't great, but what is great is the frontal armor. This upper plate, yeah, that is 240 millimeters thick, and as I just said, this is a medium, it's not a heavy, so if you're actually using the 6 degrees on this vehicle, that upper plate is impenetrable to any Tier 8 medium, or even really Tier 9 medium at that, even loading premium ammunition. Now sure, it does have a very weak lower plate at only about 170, and it's also a very large lower plate, actually much larger than even the upper plate, but still pretty impressive. The turret as well, I mean, the weakest spots on this turret are around 300 millimeters thick, so again, this thing is going to be very tricky to penetrate. I mean, it does have a cupola here, and it also has one over here, but for the most part, if you're using this thing hull down, very, very tricky pens. Side armor, it's not great. You can see it's only about 200 millimeters thick, and that's really not going to bounce much. So while it might get the occasional side scrape on the sides, it's not going to be fantastic like your IS-5 or your other Russian heavy tanks. The rear, 49, 50 millimeters thick, not great either. So it has some decent armor frontally, some really, really good armor, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be bouncing every single shell. Now, when we take a look at the Object 752's gun, it has a 390 damage per shot, 3-shell gun. However, Wargaming did state themselves that it's going to have a 2-shell gun in Blitz. So what that means is that this vehicle is probably going to have a 400 damage gun with maybe a 2.5 or 3-second interclip that is able to get out 800 damage in that amount of time, and then back in the cover. I'd like to see that. Actually sounds pretty cool, and I'd like to see how the vehicle does work. It's obviously going to have around 8 degrees of gun depression, just like it does on PC. Mobility-wise, it seems to go 40 kilometers per hour forward and 12 in reverse. Oof, that's really bad reverse speed, but not too bad forward speed. So I'm very excited to see how this specific tank is going to play when it is in testing, how it's going to play when it's actually released. But yeah, gun-wise, it seems okay, although I will say DPM is absolutely horrific. Just to put in a comparison here, this is the DPM of a Tier 9 Heavy compared to the DPM of a Tier 8 Medium. Yeah, oh my god, it's awful. So that is one thing to keep in mind about the 752 is it's probably not going to be a DPM beast. However, the 274A seems like it's going to be very strong on DPM, sitting at 2200, and as well, it's got a top speed of 58 kilometers per hour with a fantastic power to weight ratio base of 17.26. What that means is this is a fast vehicle. It's got good DPM, 320 damage per shot, which is actually quite beefy for a Tier 8 medium. And as we went over, also very good armor. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the most gun depression, so that is obviously a big limiting factor of this tank. But as we went over, this armor is absolutely amazing. Imagine a tank that has, let's say, a Blitz, 2500 DPM, 300 damage per shot, and as well, like, all of this armor. The ability to literally not be penned at all frontally. I mean, if we compare this on the penetration values with, let's say, just your average Tier 8 medium tank, or how about in a Mil 1? I mean, this is what the frontal armor looks like haul down against a Mil 1. That is absolutely insane. Side scraping, as I said, yeah, it's not amazing, but still, the fact that you could just get this much armor out of a medium tank as long as you hide that lower plate is pretty stupid. When we take a look at the 752 on the actual live armor model, it's also pretty dang strong. Let's get out another Tier 9 Heavy or something like that. How about one we are all familiar with, the ST1. Fantastic heat pen. And if you use the 8 degrees of gun depression this vehicle has, well, you could see the upper plate, it's not ridiculously thick. Sure, there will be mediums, and for a good example here, if we get a medium takeout like the 54, yeah, 54 is going to struggle to pen this thing haul down. But that turret is very, very strong, especially if you hide those cupolas like this. It's going to be quite a menacing vehicle to actually try and penetrate. Side scraping wise, it doesn't seem to be bad. It does have actually a bit of angled hull armor. We are actually rounded part here, as you can see, which will be a bit of a weak spot if you actually angle it like this, but I wouldn't really bet on hitting that. But yeah, side armor wise, it actually doesn't seem to be awful because of that really, really weird hull design, but I can't say it's going to be amazing either. It has really no spaced armor on the sides. You know, if you compare that to a vehicle that actually has very good spaced armor on the sides, like an IS-32, you can see that this bar here is very hard to penetrate. That is not the case for this 2.5 or whatever the heck the name is. They've all got these weird names that I get confused with by now. But yeah, I mean, the 7.52, that's exactly what the name is. I think that this will be a cool tank. It'll be something new that is coming into the battlefield, and something that I'd really like to see playing, but unfortunately it is going to be a premium. I was thinking that it could be a tech tree line, but unfortunately Wargaming themselves have said it's going to be a premium. So let me know what you guys think about these vehicles coming into Blitz. Do you have excitement? Do you have a bit of fear? Let me know. But other than that, hopefully you enjoyed today's video, the new relevant information I wanted to fact check all my info on. And other than that, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.